What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today I want to talk about a topic that I was just kind of thinking about on my own whenever I was having some discussions with friends and whatnot that I'm playing franchises with about whether it's better or worse to tank or win in a franchise mode when you're trying to rebuild a team. Now, we lie on different sides of the arguments, but I'm going to tell you guys some of the myths and dispel those myths and give you guys some of the general ideas of, what's the benefit of rebuilding through tanking and trying to get higher draft picks, and the benefit of trying to win out and get as much XP for your team as possible. So the first thing that I want to talk about whenever we talk about tanking versus winning is always going to be the XP debate. But the most important thing this year that they added in for the XP debate is the breakout player challenges. And there's kind of a formula that goes into this. Nobody knows, at least based on my research, 100% what goes into it, but we have a general idea of what will get you more breakout player challenges and what won't. And the things that factor into these breakout player challenges to increase the dev traits on your players are things such as, you're the record of your team. Do you have a lot of good players on your team to begin with? Are you winning? Are you losing? Are your players young? And stuff like that. And are they earning stats? Or are they earning weekly awards? And so all of those things are going to combine together to give a percentage chance that your player is going to earn a dev trait breakout for that specific week. And then whenever you advance the week, the game is going to roll the dice essentially, and it's going to decide who gets player breakouts for that week whenever you get into the franchise. Now, the way that those things interact is as follows. If you are a worse team, if you're losing games, if you're a worse overall team, you're going to be more likely to receive breakout player traits and development upgrades. And here's the reason why. If you look at a team here like the Giants, and I'll show you guys some good examples, they have very few high development trait players. You look at guys like Saquon Barkley, Kevin Zeitler maybe, and you're looking at maybe like Leonard Williams and Jabril Peppers, Dalvin Tomlinson. They don't have very many. When you look at their team roster, the adjust lineup screen, you don't see very many good players. There are some silvers here and there. There's a nice gold and a nice red superstar X Factor, but a lot of bronzes in between. And so overall, this team doesn't have a whole lot of good development. And what's going to happen is the game is trying to compensate for that to try and balance out the leagues by giving a higher percentage chance for a team like this to receive dev upgrades than for a team like, I don't know, the Patriots or something, because the Patriots will have a lot of superstars already on the team. And so it's trying to compensate and give you somewhat of an equal number of star to superstar players as some of those better teams. So that's the first thing that you want to keep in mind. The next thing that you want to keep in mind is that when you win games, you are going to be more likely to get player breakout challenges than when you lose games. And so here's where you start to get into the idea of tanking maybe not being the best route for you specifically. If you're a team like me that is the Giants, your best route might be, since you're already a bad team, to try and win as much as possible, because a bad team that starts out bad overall but wins games gives you a doubly I guess it would be a double advantage in terms of the percentage chance of your guys receiving breakout player challenges. And so if I am a bad team and I lose a bunch of games and I tank, I'm not likely to get as many player breakout challenges. Now, you probably still will get some, but you're not as likely because you're not winning games. And then on top of that, the things like your player's age, the younger that they are, the more likely they are to receive breakout challenges. The position that they're at, only halfbacks, receivers, tight ends, I believe defensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs can receive player breakout challenges. To my knowledge, they haven't added it in yet where you can receive player breakouts for offensive line or quarterback or fullback or anything like that. So the younger the players are, the more likely they are to receive breakout challenges. Guys like Jabril Peppers or Lorenzo Carter, DeMarcus Lawrence, guys like that, DeAndre Baker, they're more likely to receive player breakout challenges. And so if you're a bad team that's full of young players that happens to be winning a lot of games, you're going to have a high chance of getting player breakouts. And then on top of that, the last thing is stats, awards, and stuff like that. And so let's say I get player of the week with a guy like Jabril Peppers. That directly correlates with a high chance of him then getting a player development upgrade. And I wish I could kind of input screenshots on the screen for you here, but I'm going to show you a franchise where I am a year in with this exact team, and I've gotten a bunch of player breakout challenges by winning and getting weekly player awards, you know, player of the week and stuff like that. And they've gotten a ton of upgrades from where they're at. So take a look at what this team looks like now, and I want to show you the difference between what it looks like on the other franchise whenever we hop over there. So in summary, the best way to get player dev upgrades is to win games and win stats awards, you know, yearly awards, weekly awards, and stuff like that. You're going to get a ton of upgrades through that. And then on top of that, in order to earn more XP for your players, you have to win games. And so that's where you start to get into the debate of, is it more beneficial to do that, or is it more beneficial to get high picks so that you get superstar X Factor players? And this is where the advantage of that comes into play. If we go ahead into the Scout College Players tab, and we go into Edit Players, if you're a team like the Giants and you want to try and go for like the first or second or third overall pick, you're going to be picking a guy that's in the top, you know, top of the class here. Guys that are probably about a 75 or better, somewhere in that range. But this year in Madden, you're not going to get much better than that in terms of your draft class. The thing that you're risking with that is that you don't necessarily know if you're going to get a superstar X Factor player. So like the number one pick here in this video, Jawan Savage, he only has star potential. And so you're really taking a risk of whether you get somebody useful to your team or not. Really, the only benefit to tanking and foregoing all of those bonuses of winning games, like XP and dev upgrades and all that stuff, the only benefit to you is to manage to get a superstar X Factor. If you don't get a superstar X Factor in return for that, or at least a superstar, then it really wasn't worth it, because a superstar is 2 dev upgrades. You know, I got a benefit of like at least 3 more dev upgrades than anybody else in my league, because I was the only one that was trying to win and I wasn't trying to tank. And so I already got a superstar X Factor essentially worth of upgrades out of it, and I still have my first round pick to be able to probably get somebody late in the first round that's going to be a good player that will help my team. And so that's where I start to say, you know, maybe it's better for you guys to try and win games and stuff like that. But I think it is a pretty fair trade-off, because whenever you get those high draft picks, you have a much better chance of getting really good players to help you out at positions that you need. The other thing that you have to consider when you're talking about the breakout player challenges is it's not always going to be on a player that you need. A great example of that would be my one friend in the league that I'm about to show you guys here in a second, that has the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he had a bunch of backup players that he's not going to use get their dev upgrade challenges, as opposed to me where I got starters to use them. So like you look at his defensive line and stuff like that, he got some of his backups to get dev challenges. And so we look at like you know, guys like Anthony Nelson and stuff like that, they were getting dev challenges, and he didn't get a dev challenge on Devin White or something like that. And so there's a potential for it to go to players that you're not going to use or you don't necessarily want, and that's where you can kind of see the benefit in tanking to get the specific player that you want out of the draft, in the hopes that they have a, you know, superstar X Factor, and they're going to help you at the specific position that you need. Now, that's going to be most effective when you're trying to draft a quarterback, because generally speaking, you can get good players at other positions deeper into the draft. You know, at quarterback, all the good quarterbacks are going to be gone early on, but you know, wide receivers, halfbacks, tight ends, offensive linemen, defensive players, you can get good players in the later rounds that are going to be able to help out your team. And so that's really important to note, that the draft can help you out in that way, and you don't necessarily have to tank in order to get good players out of the draft. I never tank. I do my best to win as much as possible, because I think that XP kind of gives me an added bonus that you don't get from tanking necessarily. You do get some XP when you play games and you tank, but just not as much. And so let's go ahead and jump over to that other franchise that I'm talking about and show you guys the difference between the team just 1 year's worth of development after having tried to win as much as possible with the Giants. So I ended up going 10-6 with the Giants in this franchise, starting off with the exact same roster. And if we go ahead and look at my roster, obviously you can see the overalls are already quite a bit better, but the team just went up as a whole. I got a whole lot of XP for Will Hernandez. He's up to an 83 overall. Zeitler's almost a 90. Evan Ingram's up to an 88. I have Sterling Shepard up to an 82, and then I got a dev upgrade for Darius Slayton, so a future wide receiver for me that's really good. A young guy, he's got star, he's 23 years old, and he's super fast. Could be a really good star wide receiver for me moving forward. I was able to get that dev trait for him. He's already worth a first-round pick, if you ask me. The difference between him at a 70 with normal potential and him at a 77 with star potential, that's a first-round pick to me. I'll take that all day. I would draft this guy as a #1 overall pick because of how good he is. He's 23 years old, a 77 overall with star potential and 94 speed, and he's got reasonable height. He's 6'2", so that's a first-round pick caliber player, and I was able to develop that through my dev trait upgrades. And then we go ahead to the rest of the team, and we look at the defense, and this is where a lot of the dev trait upgrades came into play. Jabril Peppers is up to a superstar X Factor as an 87 overall. As you guys could tell, he was a star with 81 overall in the other league, and so he's got multiple dev trait upgrades in order to get him up to a point where he's super useful, and he's a cornerstone for this team. DeMarcus Lawrence got an upgrade to 83 overall superstar, and DeAndre Baker got an upgrade to 78 overall star. So you can't get all of that through the draft. That's my point. You're not going to be able to get that many upgrades that are useful to your team through the draft. Lorenzo Carter got an upgrade to star. You're looking at cornerstone players on my defense for multiple years to come that I was able to get upgrades through because I was winning and because I was already a bad team and because I was getting stats with these players and player awards and stuff like that. And so these guys are going to be cornerstones for my future on the team. You can't tell me that in a single draft I'm going to be able to get an 83 overall superstar defensive end along with an 87 X Factor safety and a 78 overall young star corner and a 76 overall young star linebacker. You just can't get that many good players in a single draft. They just don't exist. There aren't even that many in a single draft if you manage to draft all the good players. And so that's why you have to weigh, do you need to get that specific position? Maybe it would have been better for me to tank and get that superstar X Factor quarterback because Daniel Jones isn't that good for me. He's a decent player, but I don't know how much I'm going to be able to progress him. Maybe it would have been better for me to get that player, but one of the myths that you guys need to understand is that there's a trade-off there, and it's not necessarily better to do one over the other. It's completely dependent on your situation. You might look at this team and say, I need to get a better quarterback. And in that situation, if that's how you feel, it is 100% better for you to tank and get that quarterback, because me being 10-6 overall and making it to the playoffs and having, I don't know what pick overall, let me take a look, I'm not going to be able to get a starting quarterback at my pick. If I go ahead and look at my draft picks here, I have the 22nd overall pick. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to get a game-changing quarterback at that position in the draft. Which is fine, because I looked at this team and I said I didn't need a quarterback. I would rather overall this team, get upgraded and build talent around the superstars that I already have on the team. And so that's the route that I took. It really depends on which way you're going, and that's essentially the biggest myth that I'm trying to dispel for people, is that one way is better than the other. There's a camp that says winning and getting XP is better than tanking and not getting XP. Well, it really depends on your situation, and there's a trade-off for both of them. They did a good job this year in Madden in trading things off, in that if you choose one route, you're not going to be completely hampered like you have been in past years. In past years, it was no doubt better to win and get all the XP than it was to tank. But in this year's game, you will still get XP, and you'll still get dev trait upgrades for your young players, just not as often, and that's kind of the trade-off. You'll get them more often if you're trying to win and stuff like that and trying to get weekly stats, and so you can choose one way or the other. Don't listen to those myths that one route is better than the other. Just stick with your guns and go down the route that you feel is necessary for your team and which route's going to help you out the most. And so, as you guys can see, I did get all these upgrades at these positions, but I need a whole lot of help at other positions. Maybe it would have been better for me to tank and take a middle linebacker because I'm not comfortable with my middle linebackers. Or maybe it would have been better for me to tank and take that quarterback. That's just not the route that I chose to go, but that doesn't mean that it's the wrong route. And you could end up with a better Giants team by tanking and getting one of the best picks in the draft than I could end up by going this route. So hopefully that helps you guys out with some of the information in terms of how these things go. You guys can see that I did progress my team quite a bit just by winning a whole bunch of games and taking them to playoffs and not even winning a playoff game. Imagine if you go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. You can get a ton more XP. Where the bonus to the XP really starts to come into play is when you get into playoffs and you play those extra games. You have those extra games that other people don't. So you're getting bonus XP for those weeks that people that don't make it to playoffs aren't going to get. So that's the bonus there. And then obviously the trade-off is that you're going to get a worse first overall pick, and you're going to have a lot less chance of getting an impact, superstar X factor if you're winning games as opposed to tanking. So like I said, hopefully that helps you guys out in some way. If it does, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more, leave your comments down below for what you guys would like to see next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.